Thank you all. We know there's competing events this week. We're really happy that you guys could make it. For those of you who don't know me, I've only been around for a couple of months now. Christopher Croto, C3, middle name is Carl. There's always 12 Chris's in the room, so it's easy to remember. I want to thank you. This is our Startup Conversations in the Couve, not to be confused with some of our other programming events, our coffee chats, our AI events, Van Techie. This is where we bring in founders to talk about their experiences, hopefully share their successes, their mistakes. We can make all new mistakes, not repeat others' mistakes. And so let me just give you, today is really on that note about you all, right? These are structured to have these open conversations. There's going to be Q&A later. You're going to be able to ask really deep questions, things you might be struggling with, things you're thinking about, things you just come to your mind. That's literally why these are here, which is sort of core. Sorry, I'm doing these without a net. Before we get into why we're here any further, we want to thank our sponsors. So, Monsieur Chaumont.
Thank you very much. Hey, welcome to Workforce Southwest Washington. We're investing in training and development of talent to meet the needs of businesses in our area, and we support businesses and connecting with talent. So thank you very much for coming in and being in our space. Two housekeeping things. The bathrooms are at the end of the hallway, so the door you came in, continue on down the hallway and you'll see the bathroom. There are codes. It's posted here. And then you'll forget it by the time you hit the front door, so it's right there by the front door as well.
So pretty secure.
Yes.
Okay.
And in case of an emergency, cut through both these doors, turn right. The stairwell is just right there, and run down the stairs. We do meet in the parking lot of the building next door, so that if there is an emergency, please end up over there, just so that we can account for everybody that's in the room, and I'll be the last to leave. So if y'all need anything, I'm here. Welcome. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay. So one of the things that came up in a couple of these events as I've been meeting people and talking, and everybody seems to come through this a different way. Some people found it on LinkedIn, some people it was a friend, some people it was Meetup, some people it was a Slack channel, and almost consistently everybody, when I say, oh, I'm working with Dave in North Bank Innovations, they go, who? So North Bank Innovations is the umbrella, the organization that Dave created in 2017 with a lot of others in the community to start to try to create some energy around our startup community here in Southwest Washington. Right? Notice we don't have an O in our title. We stay north of the river on purpose. Right? We really want to help our local community. We really want to help the founders that are here and maybe even drag a few of them across the river if we can. And we've been working really, really hard to assemble an ecosystem of talent, of expertise, willingness to bring resources together for people that they need it. It's been a little ad hoc. Dave is essentially the nucleus of this and the connector. And so if you talk to Dave, Dave can tell you who else to talk to. We're trying to get a little bit of it out of Dave's brain and put a little more structure and a little more formality around it. So it's a little easier to access than chasing Dave down.
Yeah, it's scary in there too. So.
And so, it's going to be everything from information, advisory services, a formal incubator and accelerator once we get it established, and then informal events like this. These won't go away, but really it's leveraging this and taking it to the next level is what we're really trying to do. We're working on a few things right now in terms of a formal space. So ideally in the next couple of months, we'll have that nailed down and you won't be having to look at your meetup for what building we're in this week or this month and what floor and do I need a key to get up the elevator, and hopefully we can get all that worked out. So that's why we're here. So if you take two things away, this is really about supporting founders in our community and really trying to create that community and really knit that together even more tightly. I could talk for hours, but I think really I'm going to turn it over to our friend and host, Mr. Barkos, and let him talk about it.
Cool. Thanks, bud. Much appreciated. So I kind of put this up just for those of you who don't know me. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't. I just kind of float around town and meet really cool people doing really cool stuff. And so it really is it. That's a link over to my LinkedIn. It's not just because
My
I like
diabetes
hanging out,
is-
drinking, and eating with cool people. It's because it's amazing to lean in with founders that want to build something and want to change something in a positive way. I can't sit in rooms where somebody's complaining about what's going on and they're not going to step up and try and do something to fix it and help. So yeah, North Bank kind of came out of that, was my desire to step up and really kind of collect those people and do stuff. I usually do like a little bit about what why are we trying to fix this? I don't think it's the number one reason. I really love this. It is. It's you just don't know what you don't know, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Here's the problem: is some people look at that and they get really afraid, and other people look at it and they're like, "Oh, how do I find out? What I, who can help? What can I learn?" And so, out of these, we looked at what does an incubator, what does an organization, what does pulling together as a community fix? And so that's what we did. We put together North Bank, and it really is about mentorship, advisory, connection, community. Capital is a piece of it. It's not the only piece. And I think right now a lot of people are like, I have an idea and I need money. No, not the way it works. But really the goal of North Bank is to really just drive all those statistics down. Let's just fix what we can inside of our community to help people understand what they can do to build things in really solid business principles based on the experience of people that are here and some really smart advisories, right? And this area, little plug for Southwest Washington, has been this amazing little haven, right? It's been the tax haven forever for Portland exited founders and high net worth are coming over here. Yeah, Chris raises his hand.
I can do math.
Yeah. You want a 12% raise, come across the river, right? It becomes really simple. And right now, Portland's having a moment of a lot of challenges, and pulling out of that is going to take a while. And we're not having that moment here. And it's a really interesting time where there's just a bunch of city projects and interest to have this region be recognized for innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's kind of right for all these things. I like to brag about the community. This has been about you guys. This has been about the events we've been putting on and what's been growing. This is just a little background, really kind of interesting statistics about what's been happening here in the area and what's been going with North Bank. It really kind of set fallow as we kind of get things moving and growing. And then my big brag this morning, like 1,200 people in the group. That's based on the meetup group, right? I'd love to say there's 1,200 people here, but there's not. But there's really good people that we're meeting and bringing together. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. It takes more commitment than it takes numbers. So I always like to say this. We always talk about overnight successes because we never think about who they are and where they came from. And it takes 10 years, right? It's like as soon as you kind of pop above the radar. And so you're really in for a long haul. And I don't think we always think about that. I say that because I always kind of come back to these ideas, this concept of where are you in the journey, right? We all say it's really kind of cool and glamorous to be a founder, but we don't really kind of acknowledge where we are. Because as soon as you found something, you started it, right? And as soon as you start to take on Series A money and you're establishing, you're a founder, right? But I think it's interesting to track these things to start to give you some perspective of where you are. This is early stage, problem, solution. You're starting to put some time and money. This is where you're actually proving it out. People are actually starting to pay you. Once you figure that out, you're scaling and growing those things and establishing these is moving on to where you're kind of building some solidity or changing on margins and stuff like that. I think it's an interesting kind of perspective because the goal is really to move through those quickly, not to get stuck in them. Right? That's a big challenge. It's a really big challenge. I'm a geek. I do tables and everything else. You're not meant to read it. It's okay. I'm not going through it. It's not class. What? No, but I like to break things down and kind of make things easy. So, starting to talk about different areas of your business. Given where you are, there's different things you can focus on. And this really kind of helps you triage. So not meant to study, not meant to be prescriptive at all, but it really kind of helps frame your thinking because everybody walks in with a different perspective. So some of the stuff that North Bank does, some of the programming that Chris was talking about, things that we're going to expand on, that's the kind of stuff that we are going to be ultimately working through and building out. I always like to give, I would say a voracious reader. It makes me a voracious listener because it's all on Audible. But I like to talk about things that are kind of, top of my brain, things that I'm studying right now. And this is really interesting because, not to geek out too much over AI, but it is making this huge impact, and not just the technology about what it can do, but the way we have to think about things. What impact is it having, and how does it change our toolkit for the companies that we run or the products that we're making? This is a really interesting book that I'm enjoying, that's really talking about, like, one of the fundamental things I love in here is not the conventional wisdom that people are taking on AI is, oh, great, I can do more with less, so I'm going to lay off my staff. You're seeing that all over the place. Versus the idea that, what if we kind of pull everybody up with it? And then we're 100xing the company in different ways, right? Lean into the change that's going on. So anyway, just really enjoying the book. I would put that out there for you to take a look at. We're not, like I said, no testing and no studies today. That brings us to our guests. Callie and Kelly are absolutely amazing. I don't know what you know about them, but they've been on my hit list to have here forever. They're here in town, and just coincidentally ran into Callie up in Wenatchee, and it was just this great chance to say, wait a minute, how about then? How about today? And it was great. So gracious to have you here and hear more about the Slumberkins journey. It's been absolutely crazy, amazing local success. And so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much. Do you guys want to stand, sit?
Yeah.
What's your?
We can stay stand.
Okay.
Keep the energy up.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We're excited to share the Slumberkins story. We figured we'd kind of share more about what Slumberkins is and what the brand is in the world, and then kind of go backward in time and share a little bit about how we've built what we've built. So, to start off, Slumberkins is a brand that provides a foundation for emotional wellness for families. We come to life through characters and stories and plush and toys and music, any way that we can surround kids and families with content to help equip parents become the best teachers of their child's emotional health and wellness.
Backgrounds, I'm a marriage and family therapist and school counselor, and Callie is a early educator, special education teacher. We've been best friends since we were 14, and so as we were going through life sort of on parallel paths, we were both D1 athletes, that's why we're also very tall. But we sort of learned the way of grit and sticking at things, and we're very used to high intensity situations. And so as we went into our roles in the schools, we were both working in Title I schools, which pre-pandemic was definitely getting riddled with the behavior difficulties, teachers saying every year, this is the worst year it's ever been, I cannot control this classroom, there are kids like flying off the walls. So we were really working with those families and with those kids as a special ed teacher and a therapist, and seeing the systemic problem here, which was that parents kept coming to us at the higher level of intervention saying, here, take my kid, put them in a group, maybe they need special education, maybe they need a diagnosis. And actually, so much of that base level that we do for kids and families in the early years comes through mental health. And we wanted to empower parents to do that. So it was basically blending our backgrounds in education and making it really easy and relatable, use skills to build, and then depth psychology that I really nerd out on and get excited about. How can we seamlessly get these interventions into parents' hands?
In the early days of Slumberkins, we used to have to do a lot of education to potential investors or partners around why emotional health is so important to focus on in the early stages of development. COVID kind of helped us a bit in kind of everyone coming online to normalize the conversation about mental health and how important this is to focus on for your kids and your family. So that definitely helped the brand kind of become more, people just got what we were doing. And now we recognize that when we poll our audience, when we talk to Gen Z parents that are kind of growing up with this conversation more normalized, they know that this is a focus, but they just don't have the tools or the skills innately yet on how to do it. So that's where Slumberkins comes in.
So over the years, we've built out 15 core creatures. Seems like a lot, but we have developed these in combination with our community, with kids and families that we worked with our own experiences, and sort of brought together the ideas and bases around emotional health and wellness. So we have these 5 characters that are our caring crew. That's sort of like the base of understanding yourself, understanding that connections need to be safe in order to build community, right? So that's our otter. It's talking about we can choose our families, we can figure out who feels safe and how we can build relationships with them. Sloth with routines. In the early years, routines are so important. It's what gives kids stability, understanding of what's happening next in a world that just feels overwhelming and chaotic. And eventually, our routines from those early years become how we take care of ourselves and become our self-care practices. So the fun thing about this for me as a therapist is any one of these characters is starting at the base level of building these skills and helping not only kids, but hopefully adults in real time. Because if you are a parent, I think we all, and we have experienced this too, me especially, thinking that I knew everything that I needed to know as a therapist before I had kids, and I was going to be the best mom. I was going to break cycles, and it was going to be so easy. Like, why didn't my parents get that right? And then I had kids, and was like, oh shit. No, okay, we're all at the same ground level, and we all need that support because what we experience is what we're going to bring to our children. And so, in order to have those skills, we're practicing in real time with our kids. So these healing moments happen for the adults, and hopefully the skills are being taught to the kids.
Yep, and 15 characters is a lot. It took years to build this out, and for context in that grid that Dave was sharing, when you have the concept and then you ideate on it and then you commit, we started with 3 characters, and we'll do more of the backstory as we progress. But just for context, this was definitely a progression. We didn't have this flushed out at the beginning of everything.
And that's, I feel like, has been the cool thing too, that like trusting in the process of the growth of your idea, the growth of the trajectory that you're taking. You don't have to have it all planned out at the beginning, right? Like, we went with what people resonated with and needed the most. Our first character was about sleep, because when you're pregnant, when you have a baby, first thing people are talking to you about is, oh, you're never gonna sleep again. And when is your child transition? How are they sleeping? So we went with that first, and we hooked people in with this idea of like, how can we support with sleep? And then that collection could grow out to like, okay, well, what is that really about? That's about routines. That's about setting that structure and get people deeper in as we go.
So now all of our characters fuel everything that we do from an IP perspective, and fuel, I believe we have over 52 books that are published, and they kind of fuel all kinds of different storytelling that we can do through content. And then our kind of core product is really this kind of plush and book combo. It's how we started. It's funny, we've kind of reverse engineered an IP character franchise. Typically, if you have an idea for characters and story, you kind of start with like the pitch to bring them to life in media, and then you build out the product and merchandising plan to follow if the media side is a success. Being educators that bootstrapped this as a complete side hustle while we were on maternity leave from our roles as educators, we didn't know how to start a business. We didn't know how to start a character-based franchise. We actually
didn't even realize that's what we were doing.
Yeah. We just wanted to create the tools that we knew the parents of our students could benefit from. And we actually sold our first versions of handmade Slumberkins at Mountain View High School craft fair here in Vancouver. And we made 30 prototypes. We'll show, I think we have some pictures of what they looked like in the early days later in this slide. But I just mentioned that because we became a DTC consumer products brand because it was our way to sell and generate revenue and bootstrap ourselves, because we didn't have the funds as educators, broke educators on unpaid maternity leaves to invest in the idea. So we had to figure out how to create cash flow.
Yeah. Remember early days when people were like, you need to start fundraising, and usually the first round is friends and family. Like, go to your friends and family for your first round for, 25,000, buy-in. And we're like, I don't know anybody who has $1,000 sitting around. If we did, we probably would have already, we still have friends like that. So we're gonna have to figure this out ourselves.
Yeah. We're very proud to share that we have a TV show on Apple TV+. This was 7 years in the making, and our first season was nominated for Outstanding Preschool Series. We lost to Sesame Street, but that feels like we're just happy to be on the same stage as Sesame Street. And these are just some of the ways that the IP can come to life for kids and families to enjoy. We are surrounded, and we've really built the brand alongside the community of parents that loves and adores Slumberkins. You know that it's meaningful for a parent and maybe starting to heal some of their inner child experiences when they get tattoos of characters on them. We know that we know about 14 tattoos that exist in the world, and the community, we've really built it in tandem with them. Some of our characters, even along the path of developing characters, came from community requests. Our Sprite character that supports grief and loss was our 2018 most requested tool and resource, because parents really don't know how to really talk about grief in a developmentally appropriate way, and when they're grieving at the same time, potentially, it's really hard to support others when you're grieving. Okay, so this is where we go back in time. This is actually from one of our very first pitch decks in 2018 when we were.
This was like the finalized version. I'm like, along the way of even creating pitch decks, I feel like we had moments of like, thinking that you make one deck and you're like, okay, I'm done. Now I'm gonna go pitch my idea. Like, that was a big slap in the face. Nope, your pitch decks are always changing and improving and evolving.
Dave, I do want to mention there's a note that is super low battery in my. Okay, so this was back in the early days. This was a snapshot of 2018. We had not raised any venture capital yet. I think that at the time we did not know how to articulate the traction we were experiencing. As educators turned entrepreneurs, it was a steep learning curve of understanding the language and terminology when speaking to investors for ourselves. Ask us about special education law, I can talk all day, right? Talking about ROI, EBITDA, profit and loss, like all of those things were such a steep learning curve. AI would change the game now.
Oh, yeah.
I really wish we had ChatGPT back then. But these are some of our first handmade Slumberkins. For context, Kelly and I were just trying to keep up with demands that we were experiencing after we sold it a couple craft fairs and put them on Etsy, and we were generating traction on social media organically. For context, in 2016, we hand sewed 4,000 Slumberkins
In our garage, in our sewing room.
We called it like the cuddly creature ring because we had seamstresses supporting in Woodland, and we had embroidery shops in Beaverton, and we just would drive around picking up our parts to our Slumberkins and then hand sewing them on the weekends. Because we did work in the schools for 18 months in the beginning of this until Shark Tank was the moment that we said, all right, let's go for it. We knew we were going to film. The filming happens like the first week back to school, and so we knew, like, okay, we just can't do both. So that's when we quit our jobs and went all in.
Yeah. Also, at the time, we hadn't gotten into community with other entrepreneurs yet. We were very much like sort of on our own, figuring this out. So actually, Shark Tank was our like curriculum. We watched every episode before we were going to go on, and we fully believed everything that was happening on that show at the time. So we were like, okay.
Mark Cuban's a nice guy.
Yeah. But when they ask us, "Are you all in?" we have to be able to say yes. So we're gonna have to call them quitter. So like this is how, I think the thought that as a founder you need to know everything that's going to be down the road has not been our situation, right? Like we have just taken the information that we have had at that moment and gone all in on it and continued that as we go, and it's kind of wonderful.
And I'm sharing some of our old slides because it really shows like where we were versus where we are now, and how like just naive we really were in trying to even articulate what we were even doing. But everyone has to start somewhere, and I'm just gonna keep going through these slides.
Oh yeah.
Projections and revenue projections and like being able to articulate what you see in the future can be very hard for us. Like, we were like, great, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? I don't know. Like, I don't know how we're gonna do AC. Yeah. And along the way, we had some very helpful friends that said, you know, you need to show the strategy and the projections, just so even the investors believe that you have the vision that you can grow to that scale, and that they know you don't know how you're going to get there, but they want to know that you have the vision and that belief in yourself.
Because the first time we put this in front of somebody, we were like, okay, what do we truly think we can get to? And we sort of put out that, and it was more of a, you know, steady climb, and the investor was like, this is not exciting. Please don't show this to any other investor and go fix your projections. And so it's just, you know, those early stage, I think that as new founders, we thought we had to be very honest and like get what we said we were gonna do. And actually, as founders, you are really selling a vision that, you know, if you believe there is a path to getting there, then you put it out there, right? Like, it doesn't hold, nobody's holding you to exactly that, especially in the early stages as you're pitching your idea.
And I think it was a big lesson for us into why do you even raise money?
Yeah.
Do you, like,
I think I asked that to our first lead
if
investor.
anybody knows Robert Peace from Cascade Seed Fund, that was one of our first investor conversations, and Kelly actually asked him on the call, why do people raise money?
He was like, it was a very interesting question to be getting from somebody who is supposedly pitching to me to get money from me. Like, wait, but why do people even try to raise money?
Yeah.
It's a good in.
But it's a good lesson for, I mean, it was for us to really understand what we were doing. So back then, the 2018 pipeline, we did have Jim Henson on there, which came true. The TV show, licensing, our KPIs back then, showing what we would show investors, the modern day Sesame Street, all of these things. And so this leads us back to, okay, so you saw where we were in 2018 and then kind of where we are now. And we kind of, we took a lot of time in the early days to really take this seriously. We talked about going to the Mountain View High School Craft Fair. You would think that Kelly and I were going to the NCAA tournament like, that day. We were so prepared, we were so intense. Like, I don't know, there was something about just knowing how powerful the tools were, and then the immediate feedback that we were getting from parents that were reading the storylines that at the time were just poems on cardstock because we didn't know how to publish a book. Just how meaningful those words were, because we didn't go into it, but each of our books ends in an interactive affirmation that creates a really powerful moment of connection between the parent and child. And in today's day and age, there's a lot of disconnection happening with the rise of screens, parent overwhelm, and just so much more time spent on games and screens that then we knew that parents were spending the most connected moments with their kids during the bedtime routine. And that was the moment and why it was Slumberkins and why it was something soft you could cuddle and a book that takes 5 minutes to reach your child, because also parents are exhausted by the time you get to the bedtime routine. So we took some time in the early days to really think through, well, actually, if any of you guys remember or know the owner of Sweet Spot Skirts, Stephanie, she was my basketball coach from when I was like in 8th grade through high school, and she knew what we were doing and was like, okay, you girls need a little bit of help.
Well, we were like, oh, she knows business. She has a store.
Yeah. But she gave us a one-page sheet that said some of these questions on here, and when we were thinking about, this is when we were hand sewing them, making our first prototypes for, I think probably our second or third craft fair, we kind of proved that they had sold out at a craft fair, and okay, now let's like, we turned $200 of fabric into $750, so now we have a business. now this is a thing. So then we filled out this vision setting statement, and back then our answer to this was, I'll know I've made it when there's Slumberkins on ice. And I think that was, that, even that sentence, like, because it's something that like, we were like, this is completely crazy and laughable. But
if we would say like, okay, we did it, it would be that, right? Like, it would be on the global scale, filling out arenas. And actually,
You didn't have tattoo on there, did you?
no, it didn't have
that could have been a really good
I
answer.
never would have believed that.
Yeah.
It would have been a higher goal.
Yeah.
Well, what's been cool about that though is it really did set our North Star, and that came in handy, especially in the early days as we started gaining traction and needing to make really important decisions that would have really affected direction that we took. So as you know, we were hand sewing them ourselves. That wasn't sustainable. We knew that, and we had created a cuddly creature empire ring of like people sewing and cutting and all over the place. A lot of our customers in those early years or early days through Facebook loved that we were talking. They loved that it was like a mom-made side hustle, and they were doing something really special, and we were hand embroidering names and putting them on the creatures. So there was a real high value to that for a lot of people. We were charging a premium for that. But that wasn't our mission. That wasn't Slumberkins on Ice. That was a means to an end. So then when we came to this point before we were going on Shark Tank, we were terrified about saying on air, we had found a production partner overseas. We were moving production overseas so that we could meet demand. We knew that was going to really upset our diehard fans, some of them, of like selling out, right? Saying like, okay, well, you used to hand make, I can't even get the hand embroidery on it. And we were having a real hard time with that.
I liked the handmade, but
Yeah, Callie was like, no, we have to keep doing this. This is like, people love this. And we went back to this and said, okay, but what did we say our audacious goal was? That is going to lead us to a dead end of like, not dead end, but it's not leading us in the direction of Slumberkins on Ice. And so then we knew, okay, we have to take that leap and move forward and do the production overseas. And the same thing happened with fundraising, because we figured out why to fundraise, but right before we took that money, we were like, oh my God, we're selling, part of Slumberkins, now we're gonna be on this track, is this the right thing? Again, coming back to, well, there's no way we're going to get to Slumberkins on Ice, to this global recognition, if we don't get more supports and more people around the table that can help us get there.
So then, as soon as we did take on investment capital and brought more partners to the table, we also needed to make sure we were really aligned in our vision and mission. So this kind of has been an evolving thing, but always wanting to make our core mission central to everything that we do, because there's a lot of, in the startup journey, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of people that want you to partner with them for this reason, or like do a collaboration for this reason, and it can really kind of distract. Like some of the early examples of that for us was like, oh, you guys should make slippers. Like, well, like, does it really like enable our core mission of creating moments of connection between parent and child, or Halloween costumes? And we've learned to say not yet, because we're not at the point yet. We're still trying to just deliver on the core mission, create that love and trust of character and story between parents and family, before we expand on the things that don't carry the intent. This is just some of our examples over how we kind of looked at opportunities through our vision, mission, and target audience. And these are some of the guiding product principles that we look at through everything that we do. So Kelly and I lead product development behind the scenes of Slumberkins, and we kind of run all of the ideas for partnership opportunities through a lens like this. And I think it's been one of those things that has determined if we actually follow an idea and develop something versus not.
And I think early days, there was a definite shift. For context, we did end up raising capital. We were on a high, with the high of the market when DTC was getting investment. So we raised over 20 million for Slumberkins. We're on this high. And it really changes your sort of role as a founder in those moments. And I think coming up and now being back on a smaller scale, we're down to 4 people again, and working, being profitable, and kind of the next phase of the company. But what I'll say is early days, those scrappy startup days, it was say yes to everything, get every opportunity we can to get that, network, get to know people. And then once we got to that place where we had the money in the bank, that was the time to really focus in and be very, very disciplined. And I think that went against a little bit more against our nature as founders and what we had experienced to get us to that place, which was being innovative, saying yes, moving, yes, go, 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 go. And then when you get to the growth phase, it's really about honing in, slowing down, saying no, 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 so you can stay focused. And I think a lot of founders have a difficult moment in that time. So just as like a watch out and hindsight's 2020. If we could go back to that moment, like there's so many decisions that were like, we like overhired because we had the vision of what we wanted to do, and we built out our team for structure to scale before the revenue was there, and then the market flipped, and then we were in trouble, right? If we would have taken that slower and been really methodical and acted and pretended like we didn't have money in the bank, like where we're at nowadays, right? Like we could have done so much more with that money. But I think just along the waves of how that feels and how it feels to get to that point is so intense and such a roller coaster for founders that I think we were warned, we were told about like the first time founder mistakes, and then on the other side of it we're like, dang it, we made the first time founder mistake.
Well, and I will say, I mean, it was a different market, it was a different playbook, it was growth, don't worry about EBITDA loss, and the tides turned in 2022, and we've definitely had to shift and adjust and make sure that profitability is now the ultimate goal instead of top line growth. So we've gone through that. We could do a completely different presentation and talk on fundraising mechanics and that journey of the business strategy behind the scenes.
But I do feel like being through that, and I will say the last couple of years have been some of the hardest years of our lives, like getting through these moments. And going through that and being on the high and then hitting the low and having to like get through it also helped me personally understand what they're talking about companies that succeed, and the grit and the resilience and just the insanity that it takes when you hit those lows to get through it. And that's what your job as a founder is. That's what, when no one else believes, when everybody's dropping off, even your investors who fully believed in you, and I will say, like, having a co-founder was really helpful, because there were days where I was like, I can't, like, it's over, and she was like, I'm gonna be the last one standing if I'm like throwing Slumberkins out of my trunk, like it will be me and you. And I was like, okay, we can do it, so, but it takes that as a founder to have that grit, and that's what gets you through. Like that's I think the thing that will make us successful, because then we turned it around, we ended up getting money in again, we're close to profitability now. People are coming back and saying, "Oh, you're doing so great. I've always loved you." And it's like, like, no, this is us. This is built on our backs and the grit of the people who are here doing it.
Yeah.
You just mentioned co-founders. How do you guys deal with the decision making between the two of you?
So just like this chart is a Venn diagram, in the early days we built a Venn diagram that had my name on one side, Kelly's name on the other side, and then kind of listed out the things that each of us could solely own. We tend to actually operate quite differently. I'm more of like the community builder, and I can become best friends with someone in the DMs and build relationships online with the community. And Kelly is like the expert in taking anything that's meant for a child and creating it into a therapeutic experience. And as a therapist, like infusing anything that she would have done in play therapy and creating these really meaningful experiences. So I'm more of the like how it comes to life through the lens of community and brand, and Kelly's more of the like why and how it comes to life when anytime there's a parent-child interaction. So that was actually a pretty easy differentiation for how we tend to operate, but of course there's decisions that we both have to be aligned on, and when you grow and scale a team, and there's co-founders that are like equal, we were co-CEOs as well, there does become like a family system at play, and the employees learn how to like go to Callie for one thing or go to Kelly for another thing. And so we did have a list of the things that, Kelly and I would have to make sure that her and I only duked it out, or we were like in alignment on before any communication or decision was made out to the team, so that we were always aligned. But
Yeah, and anything in our buckets, we would say at the end of the day, like, I do trust you on that over like, and if you made a call on that, I'm not gonna undermine you, I'm not gonna stop on that, but there's certain things that like we have to be in alignment on.
And we did have a therapist that was like our marriage and family therapist for co-founder relationships, because at the end of the day, we've been best friends since we were 14. Like, if I get pissed at her, I will just also remember what she looked like when we were 14 and in high school. I'd be like, okay, we're like, kids in adult bodies over here. But I think we have deep trust. I mean, Kelly and I have built more than a friendship. It's more like a sisterhood. neighborhood where our kids basically are like cousins growing up, and there's just deep trust there. But for anyone, I know that's not typical of co-founders. We actually had a lot of people say like, oh, you guys are best friends and you started a business together. Did you want to destroy your friendship? And those were kind of clues to us that we needed to do the Venn diagram work. We needed to do the setting up just like systems in place to really kind of protect our friendship.
You haven't gotten to an exit yet. It gets even more interesting.
Well, this gives you a little bit of a snapshot over where we were about a year ago when we spent a lot of time sequencing. This was also when we had a team internally that was helping us really do a lot of these things. Some of these things are already out there in the world now, so they're launched and out. But this was kind of the chaos of 2023 of all of the different initiatives going on and how we looked at internally, how we looked at sequencing and brand building.
And this is where, like, again, this is like more of like the growth. We had like a team of more than 50 people. It's like trying to get the vision and people to work in these small teams to like launch these things. But this is also like, I look at this and I'm like, always trying to do some, it's like the yes, right? Like we're gonna do a music album, we're gonna do the show, we gotta do new product, and that's sort of like still how we are. And so we have to really try to be as focused as possible. But I was, even looking at this, I just remember how intense it was for even the whole team to try to manage all of these different things. So
More people doesn't make it
no,
easier.
it really doesn't.
It
And
really,
we obviously,
This is just, these are actually some actuals in here, so it just shows the like growth of what we've experienced.
It's your real hockey stick.
yeah,
Yeah.
these aren't real yet.
That's still our 2, 4, 6, 8, like what we think can happen. But as you can see, this was the year that we took in the big like Series A round technically, and we spent a lot of money. I mean, when I look at that, I'm like, what in the world did we do? But I will say, being able to have the capital and the right partners around us to really build the brand in what you see today, a lot of those resources went to that piece, which is the core underlying foundation of the IP that now exists in the world. These are just some of our existing foundational brand strategy pillars that exist today, and in everything that we do, that we've kind of gone through. Oh, and that's the last one. I thought I did put some old Slumberkins pictures in it. Yeah.
They were pretty rough around the edges. Early days, my mom actually lent us $200 to start the sewing thing because we didn't have the money to go to the fabric store and buy the fabrics that we wanted. And she's a seamstress. She had done my wedding dress and like was a good seamstress. So when she saw what we were making and knew that we were going to do the craft fair, she was like, oh guys, maybe we should make some other things. Like, I don't know about those little creatures that you're making. So it's been
We proved your mom wrong.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
since admitted and invested that it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much, really. So we'll just reset the room just a little bit, get us up in front. I've got some questions. I thought you were going to show the video. I was weeping up in Wenatchee.
The affirmation video.
But yeah, if you search for that, I'm going to switch with you, just because I have a deaf ear.
I was like, you're going in the middle.
There you go, in the middle. There you go. Guys, you've been an amazing success story. I now know why you were not able to answer, because you might have been working with the Henson Company or, some other slacker. So, no, really, really appreciate it. You guys, it's such a heartfelt brand, and I think that's what's amazing about it, right? You guys have been able to kind of, bring that forward, lead with it, and build something really exceptional, right? And you admittedly never knew any of that stuff going into it. What do you think is the hardest thing that you kind of, that kicked you? what you had to learn early stage?
I feel like there's learnings at each stage.
Yeah.
But
In the early stage, what was that?
Yeah.
I mean, I would go back to what I had said before of like that moment. I feel like in the early days, we had because we were so customer centric and we were so connected to our consumers, they were driving us. They were like getting us fired up about like, you know, we would make a new color, we'd make a new thing that would drop, it would sell out. So we had this fuel from our consumers, and that made it really exciting and really fun. And I think from a personality standpoint of us being like, oh, we've got something here, like let's go say yes to all of these things, and this is how we could do it. That really aligns with like the founder mentality. Like to get something off the ground, you have to be a little bit insane, I think. And so I feel like we were thriving in that time. It was a lot less about like very organized, planned out thinking, and more about like just moving and responding. And I think we really thrived there. And it was the buckling down, the saying no, the transition to scale, where we personally struggled, and then you know, growing the team and having the right people around the table that can help you transition into that, and knowing that that's an important piece of growing your business, I think is something that you know, it's just hard because when it's so personal, you feel like you want to do it because you just did it in the beginning and they're not doing it exactly the way you would want to do it. Or how do you communicate that in a way that somebody can understand it? There's a ton of work that goes into getting it out of your head and into your employees and teams' abilities
to be able to act on.
Yeah.
I would say in the early days there was a lot of imposter syndrome because we were educators. We were trying to you know, raise capital in the early days. And we had over $1 million of revenue from bootstrapping it ourselves. And we still had a really hard time fundraising. I mean, it was like scratching and clawing to get our first checks. Yeah.
In hindsight, and Kelly asked the question, why do people fundraise? And I think not enough people ask that question. In hindsight, would you have raised capital or would you have continued to bootstrap?
I think we would have still raised capital. Yeah.
I think because of our, you know, we had a really, we got into community with other founders, with other people, and that was extremely helpful. So like what the slides that he was showing about like the not knowing what you're doing and like getting connected with other founders was so important to us. But at the same time, I think just we felt as former athletes, as, you know, just our personalities, we wanted people around the table that had the experience of seeing the ride that it could be and making sure that we had those people at the table.
But if you could get access to those resources without owing people money.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the problem I see with a lot of founders.
Yeah.
They feel like it's a rite of passage to go raise a round and say that they did it. And I was oversubscribed and everybody's super excited. And they don't talk about the downside of what it means to give a piece of your company to somebody who doesn't give shit about you or your product. They just want their money back.
Yeah. No, that's true. If we had access.
Well, you mentioned it.
Maybe not.
You mentioned it too. At one point, you were talking about, you know, kind of the tension of motivation, right? That you were very centered in what you were doing. I say a very heartfelt brand. That's really different because investor motivations or any outside money, period, has just, you know, very different motivations. They're not wrong. Very difficult to align, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when in the height of 2022, we had a team of 68 in the building right north of here. And the internal culture was actually quite tough. We all went through COVID together. It was like everyone had kind of trauma bonded through that moment. And the culture really felt like a nonprofit. We had done a lot of work to make sure that our mission and vision could thrive and feel felt within the team environment. So then when the market shifted in 2022, the plan was to go and raise a growth capital round of $25 million in 2022. We experienced, you know, going to New York City to go meet with Lightspeed Capital and them canceling on us while we were sitting in their lobby. Like it was a series of events of the market turning so fast, like kind of slipping through our hands in that moment, where then when we had to come back and basically realize, actually, you should add to your list that reasons why businesses fail is running out of cash.
The number one.
Very true.
The cash management, I think now in this stage is what we have learned is the most important thing, more so than growth, traction, anything. It is cash in the bank. And you know, we've had to right size the staffing. We've had to prioritize profitability, and that playbook switch is so jolting. And I do think that like our consumers notice something is awry because we do less new product like releases. There's like a little bit of like a slowdown, but at the same time, the love and intention and mission is still there.
Yeah. You guys made another really interesting shift, and I'm curious as to when that happened. You talked about the other people that you brought in. You brought in a CEO, shifting out of being founder, being the end all be all, into somebody else. You talked a little bit about it up at Flywheel, but when was that timing, and what was that like?
Yeah, that was, I mean, again, fueled by when we got the money in and we had the money in the bank. I think we kind of sensed and felt that, like, okay, we're in growth mode. We're trying to patchwork it together. We have the vision of what we want to do. We understand what that looks like, but didn't have the experience of like managing a large team and making that executable. And so when we were doing Henson, we were filming the show, which we were very involved in as co-executive producers. Like every word of those scripts, every decision we were a part of. And so we really wanted somebody to come in to help us really scale the business. And it just so happened that I feel like I wish we would have gotten somebody maybe a year before we did, but that process takes a really long time to find the right person who's going to be the culture fit, who's going to understand, who's going to be committed. So by the time we hired a president, Suzanne, we were already in the place where like that adjustment needed to be made yesterday of like bringing the team down and like really changing things up. I remember we won OEN Entrepreneurs of the Year, and the next day we had to lay off half of the team. It was like, we were outwardly, looks like we were on fire and it's beautiful, and inwardly like we had felt that shift and it was happening real time. So I think, it's been an interesting moment because I think a lot of times, and we've talked about this before, most of the time the founders don't like say, oh, let's bring in a CEO, unless it's like take the reins so I can just kind of be on the side and like do the promotional stuff and you're going to run it and I'm sort of like a figurehead. And that's not what was happening for us. So I would say like that's been an interesting journey, to find the balance of that has been really,
Well, and it was back when we were negotiating the Henson and Apple TV Plus deal. It was when Apple TV Plus wanted to buy the show after we had developed it with Henson. The negotiation process and a three-way negotiation between Apple, whose business affairs office is like the hardest to negotiate in the world. Right. The terms that were coming through were like keeping us up at night. So we were like, the learning curve of our ability to now keep up with like entertainment deals and IP deals, like this just isn't our expertise. So let's bring in someone that understands IP media growth on that lens. And so that's where the CEO that we hired came from.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit. I just finished.
I don't know.
Sorry?
There's a couple questions. I don't know if you want to.
I wasn't looking. Yes, I will. One more question. I do want to open it up for everybody. I just finished reading a book called The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt. And it was really interesting. I mean, I think he has a very, pointed opinion and lens, but on the other side of this, you guys are dealing with foundational kind of personal issues of self-worth and value and kind of accepting who you are in that growth. But there's also a new generation that's been affected by all that as well. And I'm wondering how you see that, because those are the parents.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that there's a big question in there, but you're seeing in the middle of it. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of the parents, a lot of our parenting community that we interact with, and I know for us too, like for sure, if there's a day of overwhelm, you can catch yourself doom scrolling, right? It's like so easy to just go to the device and kind of check out of what's going on around you. And I think what I've had to really learn as a mom myself too is even if like I'm even working on my phone, because I do work from my phone a lot, I run our community on Facebook and on all of that. My kids don't know what I'm doing when they come down the stairs and I'm working on my phone. They just see my head down and I'm not engaging with them as they come down the stairs.
We used to say whispering was rude because nobody knew what you were talking about. And then people had that insecurity. And now it's the same thing when somebody's sitting there doing the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I could, from a therapeutic perspective, this is very, very interesting to me. And I also think with the advancements in AI, we're going to be coming into a very interesting time in world history of things changing for family dynamics and human development in general. But there are very basic tenets around human development. And that's linked to our brain development, and there's a lot of research and theory around family systems and how we come to understand ourselves in the world, how we come to have these core beliefs about ourselves in the world, and how we can handle whatever is being thrown at us. And those things there's a universal thread that's underneath all of that that supersedes technology. And I think that is where we're tuning into and trying to bring forward for people. So as a therapist, when people come to you for support, you always meet them where they're at. You don't shame somebody because they've been putting their kid on an iPad or they're, getting a divorce, or it's like, whatever, come as you are and let me help you understand what are the pieces that are going to support your connection with your child, with yourself, so that positive growth can happen, because growth can start at any moment. And so that is where we're in alignment with Slumberkins. And a lot of people will ask, like, well, why don't you do a book about X, Y, or Z, like specific situational things? And we sometimes do, but mostly we're going for that deeper level of emotional resonance of like how we're building, what are the building blocks for understanding yourself in the world, because that world in 10 years, in 5 years, is going to be unrecognizable in terms of like workforce, school, all of the things with AI. So
I could see that collaboration with you and Jelani and Kids Book.
Oh yeah.
In a heartbeat.
We love Jelani.
In a heartbeat. Yeah. Yes. I want to jump out.
What is your capital structure like now?
So we have raised, Kelly said 20 million, but it's actually been 25 million. And we went on a crazy venture capital journey where we definitely, given like the revenue and the valuation in the market when that all shifted, we ended up going through a recapped round most recently, where a couple of our internal investors stepped up to lead a recap and just kind of reset the cap table. And basically now we have like our lead investors are now Rogue Women's Fund, that's actually Caroline she's in Camas, and then Women's VC Fund that's based out of Portland. So we've raised a lot of venture capital, and now we just did a new, a clean slate where it's kind of hard to look at the valuation based on where we were, but it's also the reality of the market.
And what's your path from here? Is there an exit plan or?
I mean, we're hyper focused on profitability because when the market did change and we knew we were going to have to raise, our problem too was in 2024, we had a term loan due that was originally, it was a $4 million term loan that we had took out to help fund inventory, because that was the playbook. We raised a $15 million Series A. Our investors were like, great, now let's get a term loan to help fund inventory so all this cash can go for fueling marketing and awareness and growth. And thankfully, we had only tapped 1.4 million of that line of credit, but that line was due in full of August of 2024. We did not have cash to pay that in full. So then we went into a tailspin of we either need to raise money or refinance and replace this loan, or we're having to file bankruptcy if they call the loan and aren't willing to work with us and be flexible, or we're looking at Article 9 where the lender owns us and we are their employees until we pay off the loan, and maybe we can buy the assets back. But we were looking at like doomsday scenarios all last year. So
it said this is why it's been like a really rough couple of
yeah.
years.
Silicon Valley Bank was a punch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Silicon Valley Bank, yes. We were banking with them when the crisis happened. And I will say we definitely learned the power of community and the power of having inventory to turn into cash quickly. Because the day that happened, we were actually flying back from New York. We were there for a media event. We were on the plane with Caroline, actually from Rogue Women's Fund. She was there for a completely different reason. She was a few rows back from us. So we were like looking at each other going like, oh God, what's happening? And we knew that our CFO had requested to transfer all of our funds out that morning. The plane landed in Portland. The funds had not materialized in our account that was the secondary account. Actually, it was IQ Credit Union because they were our first business banking partner, and we still had that account open, but it didn't materialize. So then we were standing in the Portland airport at baggage claim, and we get a call. At the time, Suzanne, the CEO, had been there, so she had an emergency board meeting. Mary was probably on that call. Mary, our lawyer, is here in the front row. She's the best lawyer ever. But then Suzanne's telling us that at the board meeting, one of the board members said, out of fiduciary responsibility, we need to create some wind down plans. And we were like, what? Like, we're not winding down
What?
the
Silicon
baby.
Valley Bank.
But we didn't have cash in the bank to pay payroll in like 4 days. So, you know, it was one of those things. No one knew it was happening. We ended up that evening before we went to sleep, it was like 8 p.m. I crafted some messaging and posted it on Instagram that this was the scenario. And within that weekend, we replaced the amount of money that we had
First
lost.
said, we're doing a sale, we're in this crisis, there's no money, like we don't know what we're gonna do, and the post went viral, and
Yeah.
the community showed up.
Yeah, and so we replaced the amount of money we lost. So then when we did get the money back, I mean, it was great from a cash position. In hindsight, we probably should have paid off the term loan at that moment. But the plan was to refi and then raise the bigger round to then continue on that capital structure and that path. And that just wasn't the reality in the market. So I say all that because now we've just learned profitability is owning your own destiny and not being forced into other, like somebody else coming to save you. Like we never want to be in that position again, that we're looking at who's going to step up and come help save Slumberkins.
And I do think, just to speak to like the sort of rite of passage or the fundraising thing, I think as you get into being a founder, it just like comes up so quickly, like, oh, the fundraising and this person fundraised, and you feel like that's the path that you have to take, but it very much is a different path. And it's, I think for us, came back down to that like vision, right? Like the audacious goal of where we were going and the path that we were going to take. I think if we would have stayed handmade and that wasn't our goal, and we would have, you know, just been a thriving lifestyle business here, like we wouldn't have had to raise capital, and we shouldn't have. You know, we would definitely, we'd be owning it all. We probably still would have had the TV show. We got that on our own. So like, you know, there could have been a scenario where we didn't. But I think just from the path that we had decided early on that we were going to do. But I don't think that that has to be everybody's path. And if we were to start something new, both of us have said,
No.
I don't think like, we have money.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. This never runs. Last question.
It's probably a big one, and you just tell me, we'll take it offline and get stuff to copy. To switch gears a little bit, I'm really interested in how you view the portfolio and going forward, because you've got really two vectors. You've got the growth of your portfolio, you've been adding characters, but Callie, you said, you know, albeit slower, because you know, starting to look for those things, gaps in the portfolio. But then you've got a recurring base of new kids coming on all the time. And then coupled with that, the changing environment of how they're perceiving their environment. So is it an expansion of the portfolio? Do you see like 2.0 versions of Bigfoot and Yeti and some of these other characters because you've got to change your approach? Like, how do you think about that?
Can I add on to that question too? I'm wondering too about expanding the age that this is appropriate for, whether these things grow with kids.
Yeah.
All without raising more capital.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have ideas and plans, and have always, especially even as our kids have gotten older, right? Like we have an interest in that.
Yeah.
We say Slumberkins is really like 0 to 8, because 0 to 7, 8, that's when that inner voice is happening and forming. That, you know, the voice that we hear in our heads as adults, like doesn't really exist for kids until post 8. They start being able to have that theory of mind. And so we definitely have ideas for that, like tween age and potentially teenage, although those are like totally different entry points into how you're connecting with kids and the role of the parent at that time. So those are like, we're thinking of that through a family systems lens. And I would say for the portfolio, like early days when we were, it comes down to like how we're building the business now too, and how that marries with staying profitable. Because in the early days, we would change the colors of the characters and do a new drop, and we could do that because we would sew them ourselves, or we'd, you know, like 50 pink slots, and then they'd sell out like this, and then everybody would go crazy. So we had that scarcity model, and we were able to like bring variety in that way. As we've moved overseas, that is not possible. The MOQs, the minimum orders, are like 2,000 to 3,000, and so I think for us, it's really about awareness, and specifically in this moment, like we feel like the world, everybody is ready for the therapeutic support and underpinnings that are easy to use, and so the base of what we have from a character standpoint is sort of set. We'll bring in like fun little things here and there, but the curriculum sort of is set, and it's about going deeper and more like awareness and meeting people.
The thing that's on the horizon for us, and this is also like, with the nature of just being like smart with money and resources, is licensing out some of the characters, developing. We have done the work. We have a licensing agreement with one of the biggest plush companies in the world that's more mass market. And so that's not public facing. It hasn't debuted, but we do expect that in 2026, we'll have like a sub brand that lives in the mass market. That's a version of our characters, just a little bit different and differentiated, so that we can continue to produce the premium slate of characters. And then the mass market will receive basically a trio of the characters that then is a really great introduction and like doorstep into the brand. So I think for us, it's more about growing awareness, because we have close to 1 million families in our customer base, but we recognize there's so many more families to reach in the US alone. So it's really about the growth and scale through like smart partnership with licensing, that, a portion of that revenue from the mass retailers goes straight to the bottom line and matters for EBITDA. So yes, I do think there's an acquisition in the future. I think that we want to be able to say yes to a partner we want to say yes to. So that's where they understand the opportunity for the media side, the storytelling, where then we can potentially stay on board and be co-executive producers still of the series and help drive the mission-driven product lines. But
just remember that fiduciary responsibility to be your choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the only way that we really can control that is by narrowing down and really, being successful with growing EBITDA and profitability and all of that.
And staying focused on the mission-based things that are important. So then the people coming around the table, we've been lucky in that way, being so mission-led, that the people who have come to the table, who have put money in, they, as much as they are doing it because they want to, most of the people are coming because they're like, I believe in this, I do want to see this change in the world. So even when it has come to intense moments, there's been tension, of course. But at the end of the day, I do feel like most of the people who invested will know that
The majority of the people.
most of the people, and even the people who don't make it into that category, probably believe about themselves that they were doing it for
Good reasons.
Good reasons.
Good reasons. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
you guys mentioned reaching families. You reached mine. Every one of them had grandkids, 4 grandkids. Each one of them has one. The Bigfoot yak, Sprite. I can't remember what the 4th has. Might be Otter.
Yeah.
But they absolutely love it. It's been amazing. Thank you guys, really, for really. Been a long time getting you here, and it was amazing. So really, really appreciate it. There's another slide that kind of shows other events that we do. I want to be respectful of people's time, but this is, I'm more switching in. We do events we try and keep them on a regular cadence. And so this is being recorded. We will try and get these things edited and launch these things up on our YouTube channel if you want to take a look at the other ones, and let everybody know. These things are amazing. The founders that we've had, the talks, the things that we've been able to go over are amazing. So spread the word about this. There's a lot there. These are the 3 events that we do. We try and make them pretty regular and consistent. So first Tuesday of every month, we're doing Startup Coffee. We're doing that down at the waterfront. This is the second Wednesday of every month. And then we do another one, which is a combined with Vantechy and the Applied AI Association, which you saw as a sponsor. We do that as kind of just a happy hour over the Brick House. So those are happening every month. But guys, we ran a little bit long, but I could have gone even all day. So it was amazing. Thank you guys. And we'll see you for the next one. Thanks, guys.